My name is Jenna, and I grew up in what looked like the perfect family from the outside. We lived in a massive house in the wealthy part of town, complete with a pool and a 3-car garage that my father's luxury vehicles called home. My dad built his company from the ground up, turning it into a successful enterprise that provided us with everything we could ever want. And my mother, Diana? Well, she made sure everyone knew just how successful we were. "Darling, I simply must have this new Gucci bag," I'd hear Mom say to Dad at least once a week. "Everyone at the country club has one, and I can't possibly show up with last season's model again." Dad would just smile, pull out his credit card, and hand it over without a word. That's how it always went, Mom asking, Dad giving. She didn't work a day in her life, but she sure knew how to spend money. Every month brought new designer clothes, spa treatments, and trips to exotic resorts where she'd post endless photos on social media. Meanwhile, I spent most of my time with a rotating cast of nannies. We went through them like Mom went through handbags. None of them ever seemed good enough for her. I remember one nanny in particular, Miss Sarah. She was different from the others. She actually cared about me, not just her paycheck. She'd help me with my homework, read me stories, and even taught me how to bake cookies. But like all the others, she didn't last long. I caught her wearing one of my silk scarves, Mom announced one day, though I knew for a fact that Miss Sarah would never do such a thing. "We simply can't have staff who don't know their place." I was 14 when everything changed. Dad had been working late more often than usual, trying to close a big deal. Mom was planning her next vacation to the Maldives, completely oblivious to the stress lines deepening on Dad's face. Then one night, the phone rang. I can still hear Mom's scream echoing through our marble hallways. Dad had collapsed at his office, a massive heart attack, they said. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. Just like that, my father was gone, and our perfect world began to crumble. The funeral was a blur of black dresses and sympathetic murmurs. I stood there, numb, watching Mom put on a show for all the guests. She was the grieving widow, playing her part perfectly, but I could see the panic in her eyes. Not because she'd lost her husband, but because she was about to lose her lifestyle. The day Mom walked into Dad's office and sat in his chair, I knew we were doomed. She spun around in it a few times, straightened her designer blazer, and called all the department heads for a meeting. I watched from the doorway as she tried to channel her inner CEO, but all I saw was a desperate woman playing dress-up. "I've learned everything about this business from my husband," she announced to the room full of skeptical faces. "We're going to take this company to new heights." I wanted to scream. Dad hadn't taught her anything about business, she'd never shown any interest. The most involvement she'd had with the company was organizing the annual Christmas party. But now here she was, making grand proclamations about expansion plans and market strategies she clearly didn't understand. That night at dinner, she couldn't stop talking about her new role. "Did you know, Jenna, that your father had all these complicated spreadsheets? Well, I've simplified everything. Who needs all those numbers when you have instinct?" "Mom," I tried to reason with her, "maybe you should hire someone to help run things? Someone with experience?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be silly, darling. I'm doing perfectly fine. You should hear how impressed everyone is with my natural business acumen." But they weren't impressed. Over the next few months, I watched as experienced employees started disappearing one by one. First went Dad's trusted CFO, then the operations manager, and soon even the junior staff were jumping ship. Meanwhile, I'd overhear whispered conversations about missed payments, canceled contracts, and mounting debts. Mom started taking money from the company accounts for her personal expenses, insisting she deserved it as the CEO. When I questioned her about it, she'd just pat my head and say, "You're too young to understand business, sweetie." Every family gathering became a stage for her delusions. "The company's never been better," she'd boast to our relatives. "I've modernized everything. James would be so proud." Dad would have been horrified. I was only 15, but even I could see we were heading for disaster. The final blow came just before my 16th birthday. The bankruptcy notice arrived on a Tuesday morning, right after Mom had ordered new office furniture for her expanding empire. We lost everything. The company was sold to pay the debts, but it wasn't enough. Our house went next. I watched as movers packed up our luxury furniture and Mom's designer wardrobe. We moved to a tiny house on the outskirts of town, the kind of place Mom used to drive past with her nose in the air. The only thing we had left was my college fund, money Dad had set aside in a protected trust that Mom couldn't touch. But that didn't stop her from trying. "Jenna, darling," she'd say, voice honey sweet, "you know we could use that money now. We can always figure out college later." "No, Mom. That's for my education." Her face would darken. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? By watching your mother struggle while you sit on a pile of money?" She'd give me the silent treatment for days after these conversations, but I stood my ground. I'd seen how quickly she could burn through money, and I wasn't about to let her destroy my future too. The next 2 years dragged by in tension and cold shoulders. Mom and I barely spoke except to argue about money. When my high school graduation finally came around, she made it clear she wouldn't celebrate my achievement. "Why should I throw you a graduation party?" she said the morning of the ceremony, not looking up from her coffee cup. "You won't even help your own mother when she needs it." I'd already been accepted to Barrett University, a good school 3 states away. Mom didn't know it yet, but I'd chosen it specifically for the distance. As soon as the graduation ceremony ended, I told her my plans. "You're abandoning me?" she gasped, clutching her chest dramatically. "After everything?" "I'm not abandoning you, Mom. I'm going to college, like Dad wanted." The dorm room at Barrett was tiny compared to my old bedroom, but it felt like paradise. No more guilt trips, no more silent treatments, no more walking on eggshells. I stretched my dad's money as far as it would go, cheap meals, used textbooks, no spring break trips. Every holiday, I'd make the obligatory phone call home. "Hi Mom, how are you?" "Oh, surviving, barely," she'd say with a sigh. "Unlike some people, I don't have a trust fund to live off of." She never called me first. Not once in 4 years. But I didn't care, I was too busy building my own life. I graduated with honors, landed a job at Thompson and Associates, and found a small apartment in the city. Work became my focus, and I was good at it. Really good. Within 2 years, I'd been promoted twice. Then came that phone call. It was Christmas, and I was doing my usual check-in. "The heating's broken again," Mom complained. "I can barely afford groceries, let alone repairs. But don't worry about me, I'll just wear 3 sweaters and eat crackers." Something in me shifted. Maybe it was because I'd just gotten another raise, or maybe I was just tired of the guilt. But I heard myself say, "I'll come visit next week." I flew home with a plan. The house looked worse than I remembered, peeling paint, broken gutters, ancient carpet. Mom opened the door wearing that martyred expression I knew so well. "I'm doing well at work," I told her over coffee. "I'd like to help. I can give you $1,000 a month, and we can fix up the house a bit." Her eyes lit up like I hadn't seen in years. Within weeks, the house had fresh paint, new carpets, and working heat. Our new routine started slowly. Mom would call with an invitation to dinner, her voice warm and enthusiastic. "Jenna, sweetie, I was thinking we could try that new Italian place on Mason Street. Nothing fancy, just a nice family dinner. I've invited Aunt Carol and Uncle Pete." These dinners became our thing. Mom would pick modest restaurants, places where the entrees didn't break $30 and the wine list fit on one page. Sometimes it was just us, other times she'd invite her sister Carol, or her old friend Martha, or Uncle Pete. The bill usually came to around $200, which I always picked up without hesitation. I still remember the first time Mom bragged about me at one of these dinners. We were at Luigi's, a cozy family-owned place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in Chianti bottles. "Did I tell you," Mom announced to Aunt Carol, beaming with pride, "that Jenna just landed the Anderson account?" The biggest client in her firm's history. My daughter's a real powerhouse in the business world. Takes after her father that way. It felt good. Different from the way she used to brag about me as a child, when I was just another accessory in her perfect life. This time, she was genuinely proud of what I'd accomplished on my own. The dinners became more frequent. Mom would call every couple of weeks, suggesting new places she'd heard about. Never anything extravagant, she seemed to understand the unspoken boundary there. She'd invite different combinations of relatives and friends, small groups who were always grateful and never presumptuous. Meanwhile, my career continued to flourish. I closed bigger deals, earned larger bonuses, and finally had enough saved for a down payment on my own place. The mortgage was substantial, but manageable with my salary. Mom came to my housewarming party, and for once, she didn't make any comments about the size or location. She just hugged me and said, "You've done so well, sweetie." When I upgraded to a new car, it felt natural to give Mom my old one. It was still in great condition, a 5-year-old Lexus that I'd maintained meticulously. Her ancient Honda was on its last legs anyway. The car was just the beginning. I noticed her ancient dial-up internet connection during one visit and immediately arranged for high-speed fiber installation. Then I started covering her utility bills when I realized she was keeping the house too cold in winter to save money. The real turning point came when I planned my first business trip to New York. Mom had always wanted to see Broadway, so I invited her along. Then Aunt Carol mentioned she'd never been to New York either, and before I knew it, I was booking tickets for 3. They were perfect travel companions, excited but not demanding. They were happy with comfortable mid-range hotels and authentic local diners. We walked everywhere instead of taking taxis, and they spent hours in Central Park, just people watching. That first trip set a precedent. Whenever I had to travel for work, Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, I'd bring Mom and 1 or 2 relatives along. They'd entertain themselves while I was in meetings, we'd meet for dinner, and on my free days, we'd explore together. They never asked for shopping sprees or expensive shows, though I'd occasionally surprise them with tickets to a musical or a nice dinner cruise. It felt like I was finally getting to know my real mother, the person she might have been if money hadn't warped her perspective so badly all those years ago. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing contracts at work. Mom's voice had that special excitement I'd grown to recognize over the years. "Jenna, honey, I've been thinking about my birthday next month. You know I'm turning 55, right?" "Of course, Mom. I was planning to come down for it. Did you want to do something special?" "Oh, yes, I want to celebrate properly this time. It's a big milestone, after all." I immediately started planning. "How about a nice dinner at your place? We could invite the usual crowd, Aunt Carol, Uncle Pete, Martha. I could hire a caterer, or we could order from that Italian place you love." "Oh no, darling," she cut me off. "Don't worry about any of that. I want to arrange everything myself this time. You've done so much for me lately, let me handle my own birthday celebration." Something in her tone should have warned me, but I was just happy to see her taking initiative. "Are you sure? I really don't mind helping." "Absolutely positive. Just show up at 7. I'll text you the restaurant address." When the day came, I flew in early and checked into my usual hotel. Mom had texted me an address I didn't recognize, but I didn't think much of it until my taxi pulled up at Le Chateau, the most expensive restaurant in the city. The kind of place where the menu doesn't list prices and you need reservations months in advance. The headwaiter led me through the main dining room, past the crystal chandeliers and gold-leafed walls, to a massive private section in the back. My heart stopped. There, spread across several tables draped in pristine white linen, sat at least 30 people, every relative we had, plus what looked like half of Mom's social circle. "Jenna." Mom rushed forward, tears gleaming in her eyes. She wrapped me in a tight hug that smelled of her favorite expensive perfume. "I'm so happy you're here." Stunned, I let myself be led to a seat. Aunt Carol reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're such a wonderful daughter," she gushed. "Your mother couldn't stop talking about how you insisted on throwing her this amazing party. The foie gras is divine, and I hear the Wagyu beef is coming up next." The room seemed to spin as realization hit me. Mom hadn't just arranged her own birthday party, she'd arranged an extravagant celebration that she expected me to pay for, without even telling me about it. My stomach churned as I watched plate after plate of obscenely expensive food arrive at the tables. Waiters glided between guests, pouring $500 bottles of wine like it was tap water. I spotted Japanese Wagyu beef that I knew cost $400 per serving, imported caviar, whole lobsters flown in from Maine. A quick mental calculation made me dizzy. $8,000, at least. Maybe more. Aunt Carol stood up, champagne flute in hand, gently tapping it with her silver spoon. The crystal ring echoed through the private dining room as conversations died down. "I'd like to make a toast," she announced, her face glowing. "To my wonderful niece, Jenna. Your generosity tonight shows just what an amazing daughter you are. The way you've taken care of your mother, and now this incredible celebration." "I'm sorry," I cut in, my voice shaking slightly. "But I need to stop you right there." The room fell silent. Mom's smile froze on her face. "I didn't arrange this dinner," I continued, looking around the room. "I didn't choose this restaurant. I didn't authorize any of these expenses. In fact, this is the first I'm hearing about any of it." Gasps rippled through the gathering. Someone's fork clattered against their plate. "Jenna," Mom hissed, her face reddening. "Don't be ridiculous. Of course you're paying for this. Who else would?" I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the marble floor. "No, Mom, I'm not. I offered to host a nice dinner at your house or order from your favorite Italian place. You said you wanted to handle everything yourself. You never mentioned Le Chateau or inviting 30 people. But you always pay," she sputtered. "You've been paying for everything. For reasonable things, normal restaurants, basic bills. Not this." I gestured at the extravagant spread. "I don't owe you a blank check." "You ungrateful." Mom's voice cracked. "After everything I've done for you." "Everything you've done for me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean like trying to spend my college fund? Or running Dad's company into the ground?" The silence in the room was deafening. I reached into my purse and pulled out my wallet, counting out $200. "This covers my pork chop and glass of wine," I said, placing the bills on the crisp white tablecloth. "Good luck with the rest." I walked out without looking back, my heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. Nobody called after me. Nobody tried to stop me. The night air hit my face like a slap as I emerged onto the street. I hailed the first taxi I saw and directed it to my hotel. As soon as I reached my room, I turned off my phone. I knew it would start ringing soon enough, angry calls from Mom, disappointed messages from relatives, demands for explanations. But for now, I just needed silence. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, hands shaking, and watched the city lights twinkle through the window. For the first time in years, I felt truly alone, and strangely, wonderfully free. The next morning, my phone nearly exploded when I turned it on. The notifications kept coming, 47 missed calls from Mom, 28 from Aunt Carol, 15 from Uncle Pete, dozens more from various relatives. The voicemail was full. I took a deep breath and called Mom. She picked up on the first ring. "Mom, I'm sorry about how things went down last night," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm coming over now. We need to talk about what happened at the restaurant." I genuinely thought she might meet me halfway. That maybe, just maybe, she'd realize how inappropriate it was to arrange such an extravagant party on someone else's dime without even asking them. I couldn't have been more wrong. "How dare you!" Her shriek was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You selfish, narcissistic, ungrateful thing. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mom, if you just told me about. You completely humiliated me. In front of everyone. Do you know what happened after you stormed out like a spoiled brat? Everyone had to chip in $400 each to cover the bill. $400. The total came to $12,000, $12,000. And you, with all your money, couldn't even be bothered to pay for your own mother's birthday. You greedy bastard. My head spun. $12,000. They'd ordered even more after I'd left. You think I'm greedy, Mom? Fine. I'll show you greedy. I hung up mid-rant. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Instead, a cold clarity settled over me as I opened my laptop. First, I logged into my bank account and canceled the automatic monthly transfer of $1,000 to her account. Next, I called the car dealership where I'd purchased my old Lexus. Hi, this is Jenna Mitchell. I need to arrange for a vehicle retrieval. The car is still in my name. 20 minutes later, a tow truck was on its way to Mom's house. I pulled up the internet service provider's website. 3 clicks and her high-speed connection was scheduled for disconnection. Finally, I opened my social media account and started typing. Important announcement for my family members, effective immediately, I will no longer be financing any trips or travel expenses for my mother or relatives. Any previous arrangements are cancelled. Please make your own travel plans going forward. I hit post and closed my laptop. It felt like closing a chapter of my life. The fallout was nuclear. Within hours of my social media post, my notifications exploded with comments from relatives who, just days before, had been more than happy to enjoy my generosity. How could you do this to your own mother? Aunt Carol wrote. After everything she sacrificed for you. You're nothing but a selfish, money-obsessed ingrate. Uncle Pete, who'd traveled with us to San Francisco just 2 months earlier, chimed in, your father would be ashamed of what you've become. Is this how he raised you? To abandon family? The comments kept coming, each one more venomous than the last. My cousin Rachel, who I'd helped move into her new apartment just last year, posted, don't bother showing up at my wedding in September. I don't want someone so heartless at my special day. Aunt Carol followed up with another blow, and you can forget about my 60th anniversary party next month. We don't need your money or your presents. It was fascinating, really, watching how quickly they forgot all the dinners, all the trips, all the times I'd picked up the check without a second thought. Now I was the villain in their story, the greedy daughter who'd cut off her poor mother. None of them mentioned the $12,000 dinner bill they'd been forced to split. None of them questioned why Mom had invited 30 people to a restaurant where entrees started at $300 without discussing it with the person she expected to pay. In their version of events, that part didn't matter. The first few weeks were the hardest. I threw myself into work, took on extra projects, anything to keep my mind occupied. My phone kept buzzing with messages from unknown numbers, relatives, trying to reach me through different phones after I'd blocked them. I changed my number. Some nights, I'd lie awake wondering if I'd done the right thing. But then I'd remember all the times Mom had manipulated me, all the guilt trips, all the endless demands, disguised as love. The birthday dinner wasn't an isolated incident, it was just the most blatant example of a pattern that had been there all along. 2 months after the restaurant incident, Mom tried to reach out. She used her neighbor's phone to leave a voicemail. Jenna, honey, can we talk? I miss you. Things have been difficult. Maybe we could meet for coffee? Just us? Her voice sounded smaller somehow, less certain. Part of me wanted to believe she'd changed, that she'd finally understood. But then I noticed she still hadn't apologized. There was no acknowledgement of what she'd done, no taking responsibility. Just another attempt to reel me back in. I blocked that number too. Life went on. I got another promotion at work. Without the constant drain of supporting Mom and various relatives, my salary stretched further than I'd ever imagined. I took a trip to Europe, alone this time, no relatives to entertain, no one's demands to accommodate. It was liberating. Sometimes, through mutual acquaintances or social media, I hear bits and pieces about Mom's life. She had to downsize again, move to an even smaller place. She complains to anyone who'll listen about her ungrateful daughter who abandoned her. The relatives all sympathize, of course, but interestingly, none of them have offered to support her the way I did. Do I miss having a mother? Sometimes. But I miss the mother I needed, not the one I had. I miss the idea of family, but not the reality of what my family had become, a network of users all too happy to take everything I could give and then condemn me when I finally said enough. Maybe someday Mom will have a real epiphany. Maybe she'll understand that love shouldn't come with a price tag, that family isn't about financial transactions. Maybe she'll offer a genuine apology, not the kind that comes with excuses or demands, but one that shows true understanding of the hurt she's caused. If that day comes, I might be open to rebuilding some kind of relationship. A different one, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. But even then, I'll never go back to being the family ATM. That chapter of my life is closed forever.
My name is Allison, and I'm a 37-year-old remote worker. I started working from home due to living with my in-laws. I met my husband, Tony, when I was 32 and we married when I was 34. Originally, I worked at a major cosmetics company. But living with my in-laws was decided when we got married. When we started living together, my mother-in-law told me, "It's only natural for a woman to stay home, prepare meals, heat the bath, and wait for her husband to return. It's absurd for you to work and come home later than your husband. If you can't do that, we'll have to divorce." If I had known my mother-in-law was so old-fashioned, I might have reconsidered marrying. However, divorce was not an option. So I secretly continued to work from home. I couldn't quit my job and I wanted to save money for emergencies. Avoiding my mother-in-law finding out about my work has been challenging. But I'm managing. However, what breaks my heart even more is the severe mistreatment from her. Before we married, there was no harassment or unpleasant behavior. So I thought we could get along fairly well. Once we started living together, it was nothing like I had imagined. Since moving in, I have been doing all the household chores, while my mother-in-law lazes around every day. Yet, she nitpicks everything I do. The next day after moving in, I started preparing meals. "What is this? You call this soup? This can't be called soup. And the stew is too bland, and the mixed vegetables are bad. Your cooking skills are disastrous," she would say. I was shocked since I lived alone before and cooked decently. My father-in-law ate quietly, but seeing this, my husband Tony intervened. "Mom, calm down. It's not that it's too bland or bad. It's just different from your cooking. She can learn your taste over time. Besides, it's rude to speak ill of the food Allison made for us." Hearing this, my mother-in-law sulked. "Tony, you're taking Allison's side over mine." I'm disappointed. I don't intend to teach Allison how to cook at all. If you want my approval, go to a cooking school and learn by yourself. And she returned to her room during the meal. Tony tried to reassure me, "It's okay, let's just leave her be for a while. I think she's just confused. She asked us to live with her. But she doesn't know how to interact. I'll talk to her later so you don't have to worry." I decided to trust my husband and leave it to him. However, about a month after starting to live with my in-laws, my relationship with my mother-in-law remained strained. It seemed she held a grudge against Tony for scolding her about the cooking. It's all Allison's fault that I got scolded by Tony. He told me not to say horrible things afterwards. Why should I be scolded when it's Allison who made the terrible food? Even my husband thought it was Allison's fault. It's so frustrating. You will take responsibility for this. Accused of being unreasonable. The harassment escalated from there. I thought about consulting Tony again, but he was involved in a big project. And I didn't want to stress him unnecessarily. So even as the harassment escalated, I kept silent about it to Tony. Being criticized for my cooking became a daily occurrence. However, I wasn't confident, so I took my mother-in-law's words seriously and tried to use them as a learning opportunity. But to her, it seemed like I was being defiant. I made the seasoning a bit stronger today, just as you mentioned yesterday. Would you mind tasting it? I asked. She glared coldly and said, "Are you saying I nitpicked your cooking again? You're truly a rotten daughter-in-law." I didn't say a single thing like that. I'm not saying you nitpicked. I'm just trying to adjust it to your taste as you suggested. I tried to smooth things over, but she continued to accuse me. See, you're blaming me after all. You changed the seasoning because I mentioned it, right? That's the same as blaming me. That's why I said you're rotten. You won't admit your own faults. I'm ashamed to tell the others that you're Tony's wife. No matter what I said, it seemed useless, so I apologized to my mother-in-law, admitting I was wrong. Then she gloated. See, I knew you were at fault. By apologizing, you've admitted your wrongdoing. If you had done this from the beginning, you would still be honest and cute. Don't even think about defying me from now on. Although it was frustrating, I thought it was fine if that resolved the situation smoothly. Another day, she ordered me to tend to the garden. As I was pulling weeds, she commented, "Are you doing it properly, Allison?" "Oh no, there are still so many weeds left." "Where are you looking?" "Look, this place is still not clean at all." "Ah, I thought I'd pull out the small weeds after removing the larger ones. So I haven't done it yet." "I'll do it after I take a break," I responded. My mother-in-law sighed. "What? Are you saying that I misunderstood and got angry for no reason?" "Either way, you haven't done it yet, so it's not my fault. Also, don't talk about taking breaks. It's not even midsummer, you don't need a break. Come on, get back to it right now." I felt like rebelling. But I held back and resumed the work. On another day, I received unreasonable complaints about cleaning. I was cleaning the windows the way my grandmother taught me, using folded old newspapers dipped in water, which makes them shine. Since it's a way to utilize newspapers that would otherwise be thrown away, I always used this method for cleaning windows. However, seeing this, my mother-in-law mocked me. "Cleaning windows with newspaper? What era are you from? I never do such a thing," she said. "What if it scratches the windows?" I didn't respond but simply apologized. Then, my mother-in-law sighed again. "Are you incapable of anything but apologizing? Don't you have a will of your own?" So I expressed my opinion as she had demanded. Many people worry that cleaning with newspaper might scratch the windows. I explained. But I use the folded crease of the paper, so it doesn't scratch. Besides, it cleans better than using a regular towel. My mother-in-law's face turned red. "What, you think my knowledge is lacking? Just because you know more. Don't get too pleased with yourself." She shouted and stormed off somewhere. Whether I rebelled or expressed my will is told. I was scolded. If anyone knows what the right thing to do in such cases is, I would like them to tell me. After continuously being scolded for unreasonable things, and beginning to feel mentally exhausted, I heard something from my husband. My brother is currently on a business trip. But he's going to have a wedding when he returns, he said. It's scheduled for the month after next. But how much should we give for the wedding gift? I'm not very good at this sort of thing, he confessed, so I decided to take care of the wedding gift. However, I never thought he would marry. He was so focused on work that he used to declare he didn't need a girlfriend. My husband said as he enjoyed his evening drink and talked about his brother, Jason. He was dedicated to his job and used to be transferred a lot. But he's planning to refuse transfers for a while after getting married. It should be manageable. Apparently, his fiancée understands that he's often transferred. But I hope they prioritize their time as a couple for at least a while after getting married. He said they plan to move after the wedding, so I thought I'd help out. My husband continued before falling asleep. 1 week before Jason's wedding, I was involved in a traffic accident. I had to be hospitalized for at least a week, making it impossible for me to attend the wedding. When my husband brought my in-laws to visit me, my mother-in-law sneered as my husband went to buy drinks. How could you get into a traffic accident, Allison? You must be so clumsy. You could have avoided it. Oh, it's just so stupid of you. It's such an ominous thing to happen just before your brother-in-law's wedding, she remarked. I screamed internally that I would have avoided the accident if I could and tried to calm myself down. When my husband returned, my mother-in-law suddenly changed her tone. Allison, are you really okay? Seeing you in such pain hurts my heart. If I could, I'd take your place to ease my mind. It's tough, but just try to get better soon. If there's anything I can do, just let me know. I want to help as much as I can. So don't hesitate to rely on me, she said, pretending to be a good mother-in-law. It was so obvious it almost made me laugh, but the pain was too much to bear. Even though my husband visited me daily and my mother-in-law occasionally, her visits felt more like she just couldn't wait to make sarcastic remarks. Are you still lying down? It's been 3 days, you should be healed by now. Stop acting like a victim and pretending to be injured. Because of your accident, Tony has to visit the hospital every day, which means he has less time for me. Even at home, he keeps saying he's worried and wants to check on you. Give me back my dear son, she said. Eventually, I felt it was time to cut ties with my mother-in-law, and decided to discuss this with my husband. When he came to visit, I told him everything. I've been harassed by your mother for a long time. I refrained from consulting you because you were busy with an important project. Even after the accident, she calls it a visit but keeps making sarcastic remarks. I've managed so far, but I can't endure it anymore. I want to cut ties with your mother, I said, and my husband agreed with me. Before I could tell my mother-in-law that I wanted to cut ties, something happened. My injury worsened, and my hospital stay was extended, making it impossible for me to attend the wedding. On the day of the wedding, as I was thinking about the bride and groom, my mother-in-law called. What are you thinking, not attending your brother-in-law's wedding? How heartless can you be? I don't know what you're up to, but come here right now. I explained that I couldn't come because I had already informed her that my hospitalization was extended. Furious, she snapped. You must be healed by now. You're definitely pretending to be sick. You don't want to attend the wedding, so you're using sickness as an excuse. I won't be fooled by you. I don't need such a terrible daughter-in-law anymore. Leave our family immediately, and hung up. I actually felt relieved as I had been wanting to cut ties with her. This way, I didn't have to explain why. That night, I told my husband what his mother had said and asked him to pack our things. When I was discharged, we moved out of my in-laws' house and stayed at a hotel until we found a new place. My mother-in-law didn't expect her son to leave too and looked very frustrated. Thanks to a friend, we quickly found a new home and started a new life together. After a while, my mother-in-law called. "Ah, Allison, it's been a while. Are you doing well? I called today because I wanted to apologize. I deeply regret the terrible things I've said. I really regret driving you away. So, let's get along well from now on, shall we?" But I felt no anger because I knew why she was contacting me. "I heard you gave a generous wedding gift to Jason. Was it $5,000? It's amazing that you could give such a large amount. But hearing about it, I really reevaluated my opinion of you. So feel free to come back anytime. I used to be the head of a company. But now I work from home and trust my skilled team to handle things. I had enough savings, and I had given $5,000 as an apology for not attending the wedding and for moving expenses. Knowing this, my mother-in-law must have contacted me because she realized I had money. I firmly told her, "I have no intention of getting involved with you anymore. And I know that you contacted me because of the money," and hung up the phone. After that, she contacted me several times asking to borrow money. But I blocked her calls and made sure she couldn't reach me. Finally, I returned to work and managed to focus on my job again. My husband and I are enjoying life together, without any problems. My wallet was in your bag. You thief! My sister-in-law shouted at me, glaring as she rummaged through her bag. This happened during dinner at my fiancé's parents' house, right after we had set a date for our wedding. Among the attendees, including both our families, was my sister-in-law, whom I always found difficult. I had already caught my sister-in-law's eye when I visited my family home recently to announce my engagement. Since then, she frequently invited me out for meals, always saying things like, "Can you cover for me today? I'm out of change." Or, "I forgot my wallet, lend me some money," never paying for her own meals. I initially wanted to get along with Kelly, but as days passed, my suspicion grew, and I tried to avoid her as much as possible. Yet there I was, being accused of theft in front of my fiancé and our relatives. My mind going blank. The wallet my sister-in-law held was indeed hers. But I swear I did not steal it. Sister, please calm down. What, you're going to make excuses? Expect a lawsuit for the theft," she exclaimed without giving me a chance to speak, continuing her tirade excitedly. Watching her, I regained my composure and couldn't help but let out a laugh, which even made the other relatives start laughing, leaving Kelly dumbfounded. "What's so funny?" Eventually, as her face turned bright red with anger, I decided to tell her the truth. "It's laughable, the things you're saying, sister. My name is Kelly. I'm a 28-year-old office worker, recently engaged to Nick, a man 2 years my senior and my supervisor at work. Nick has been looking after me since I joined the company, earning my trust with his generous nature and sincere attention to his subordinates. He made a great first impression as a trustworthy supervisor who listens sincerely to his subordinates and shows a genuine interest in their concerns. As we interacted daily, we not only discussed work but also shared personal stories, gradually developing mutual affection. Our similar ages and common interests likely contributed to the connection. After a few years of dating at work, we decided to get married and planned to first inform our parents. When we visited my family home, my parents and sister wholeheartedly blessed our union. My sister Gina, who is 7 years older than me, is already married and lives near our family home with her husband and their 2 children. Due to a chronic illness since childhood, she now works from home as a translator. She finished her work early today to meet us, knowing I was coming to visit. Kelly, truly congratulations. Nick, please take good care of my sister. Gina smiled at me and Nick. I felt as happy as if the compliments were for me. When Nick later remarked, "Your sister is wonderful." Nick also has a sister, right? I'm looking forward to meeting her. When I told him this, Nick showed a complicated expression for some reason. I'm glad you think so. But, well, my sister can be a bit selfish and vain. I worry she might trouble you, Nick responded hesitantly, seeming like he didn't want me to meet his sister too much. As for me, since she was going to be my sister-in-law, I wanted to get along with her. However, I couldn't have imagined at that time how much trouble this sister-in-law would cause me. Later, when we visited Nick's family home, his parents warmly welcomed us. It's been a while, Kelly. Thanks for coming. My mother-in-law greeted me casually, father-in-law smiling softly. Although it was my first time inside their home, I had spoken with Nick's parents at their doorstep before, maintaining a good relationship. This was the first time I had entered their house. So in addition to announcing our marriage, I was nervous about meeting my sister-in-law for the first time. However, it seemed that she was not home at the moment. While I felt disappointed, Nick seemed visibly relieved. Perhaps he really didn't want me to meet his sister. Keeping her in the back of my mind, the conversation with his kind parents flowed well, and my nerves quickly eased, allowing us to have a pleasant time. Nick's parents were genuinely delighted about our marriage, which reassured me as we started to prepare to leave. Just as we were being seen off by his parents and putting on our shoes at the entrance, the front door suddenly opened from the outside, and a woman's voice saying, "I'm home," announced the arrival of a woman entering the house. Seeing her, Nick muttered, Oh, it's Nick. What, you're leaving already? Stay a bit longer now that I'm back," the woman, standing in the doorway, said. She was a woman in her mid-30s, similar in age to my sister Gina but with a stronger, more assertive presence and heavier makeup. This was Lauren, Nick's sister. According to Nick, Lauren was divorced with no children. "Nice to meet you, I'm Kelly, and I'm engaged to Nick. We came to greet you today." I introduced myself to Lauren. She replied nonchalantly. As I looked up, Lauren appraised me with evaluating eyes, then smirked and asked, "So, where did you meet Nick?" "Hey, Lauren, it's her first time meeting you. Don't start with such questions," Nick interjected, annoyed. Ignoring him, Lauren bombarded me with more questions like, "How much do you earn? You look well off. Do you work at the same company as Nick?" Well. As I was overwhelmed and unable to respond, Nick stepped in and scolded her. "Enough already, you're troubling Kelly. We're leaving, so please move." Nick pulled me away from Lauren, who glared at him as if he was obstructing her. "What, we're going to be sisters-in-law, so I should be able to talk a little, right? Oh, let's exchange contact information while we're at it," Lauren said as she took out her smartphone. leaving me bewildered but unable to refuse since we would be family. I reluctantly gave her my contact details, wondering if that was the right decision. "Don't bother Kelly too much, Lauren," my mother-in-law cautioned. But Lauren entered the house without seeming to care. I finally understood why Nick had seemed so troubled whenever Lauren was mentioned. Unlike my kind and intelligent sister Gina, Lauren was forceful and didn't listen to others. The complete opposite of what I knew as a sister. Feeling uncertain about getting along with her in the future, I still wanted to maintain a good relationship with my in-laws. So I planned to respond diligently whenever Lauren contacted me. The day after we exchanged contact information, Lauren began to frequently email me. During our email exchanges, we discovered that our workplaces were close by, and one day, she invited me to lunch during work break. Thinking there was no reason to refuse, I agreed. However, as we finished our meal and went to pay, Lauren suddenly exclaimed as if she had realized something. "What's wrong?" "Sorry, Kelly, I just realized I don't have any small change. Could you cover for me? I'll pay you back later," she casually requested while looking into her purse. I found her behavior suspicious but thought it was just the cost of a single meal and paid for her that day. But on another day, oh dear, I forgot my wallet. "Kelly, can you pay for me again?" she said. Lauren began to frequently invite me to lunch, always finding reasons to have me pay for her meal. When I asked for repayment later, "The cost of lunch isn't much, is it? Let's not sweat the small stuff," she would dismiss it, refusing to take it seriously. Although the cost of one lunch wasn't much, her frequent invitations were increasingly burdening me financially. Months passed, and not once did Lauren return the money I had covered. My distrust towards her grew daily, and I realized it was best to avoid her. Now, I decline her lunch invitations with various excuses and keep my email responses to a necessary minimum. Despite trying to minimize contact, one day after work as I was leaving the company with Nick, I heard a familiar voice calling my name. Turning toward the voice, there was Lauren, having waited for me to finish work. "Leaving work together as a couple, huh? Must be nice," she said sarcastically, causing Nick to frown. "What do you want, sis?" With a smile, Lauren said, "Actually, I have dinner plans with friends tonight. But I'm a bit short on cash. Kelly, could you lend me some?" Her actions, as if she had gotten used to asking for money, really upset me. I must decline. "You haven't even returned the money I lent you before." As soon as I firmly rejected her, Lauren became sullen. "Why are you being so cold? We're family, right? A family should be able to lend each other money. Besides, you earn more than me," she said, although I had never discussed my salary with her. She probably figured it out since I work at the same company as Nick. Before I could respond, Nick reprimanded her. "Even in a family, we shouldn't borrow money like this. Instead of going to dinner, you should first pay back Kelly. If you can't pay her back right now, please just go home." "Nick, who are you talking to like that? I'm your sister. Are you defending a stranger over your own sister?" Despite just calling us family, now she looked at me as if I were a stranger. Moreover, in today's world, a woman needs to have money. By not lending me some, you're just admitting you're poor. She argued nonsensically, which even made Nick lose his temper. "What you're saying is nonsensical. Kelly, let's go." Don't take her words seriously. Without wanting to engage further, we pretended not to know her and left the scene. As we did, colleagues from our company glanced over, making us the center of attention. "Wait a minute, don't go," Lauren shouted behind us, but we did not look back. Occasionally, Lauren still contacted me. But with the wedding preparations keeping me busy, I only responded superficially. Of course, I declined her dinner invitations. And since the incident in front of the company, I hadn't met her. As the wedding day approached, a family dinner was organized at Nick's parents' home. Upon arriving, both our parents and my sister also arrived. Although Lauren was present and greeted everyone, she surprisingly said nothing to me, which felt eerie amidst the festive mood. The dinner ended in a cheerful atmosphere, everyone chatting happily. Then, returning from the restroom, Lauren suddenly started screaming, "My wallet! It's gone! Where is it?" She claimed her wallet, which should have been in her bag, was missing. "Calm down, isn't it just left in your room?" suggested my mother-in-law. Though Lauren wasn't listening. "I definitely put it in my bag." "Oh, I see, you must have stolen it," she accused me, grabbing my nearby bag to search it. To her surprise, she pulled out a wallet, the same wallet I had seen several times before, belonging to Lauren. "See? Just as I said, my wallet was in your bag." Triumphantly, she confronted me. "You stole it while I was in the restroom, didn't you?" Acting all innocent but such a terrible person. "I oppose you marrying my brother." Lauren, please calm down. Planning to make excuses? "What you did is theft, be prepared for a lawsuit." Before I could respond, she continued shouting excitedly. I couldn't endure it any longer and burst into laughter. "Ha ha. Ha ha ha." As I started laughing, both my parents and Nick joined in, laughing out loud. Faced with this scene, Lauren was stunned, then turned red with anger. "What? What's so funny? It's laughable, the things you're saying, Lauren." "Huh?" The next person to speak to Lauren, who seemed not to understand the situation, was my sister Gina, sitting next to me. "That's not her bag. It's mine." Upon hearing this, Lauren's face froze. "What?" Lauren, sweating on her face. I asked, partly to confirm. "You think my sister would steal your wallet?" "That's impossible, right?" Lauren had been looking for a chance to accuse me. Anticipating she might pull something, I hadn't brought my bag to the dinner. The bag beside me was my sister's, and she certainly couldn't have stolen anyone's wallet. That's absolutely impossible because since childhood, my sister has been unable to walk and uses a wheelchair. She can't stand or walk on her own. My in-laws and Lauren had seen her in a wheelchair at the dinner. Since the dinner party began, Gina hadn't moved from her seat and had been chatting amiably with my parents and in-laws. It's likely that Lauren herself placed the wallet in Gina's bag. The question is when she managed to do it without us noticing. "Lauren, you came over to greet us and our parents before the meal, didn't you? At that time, I recall you were sitting in such a way that you were almost hiding my bag behind you. I felt something off about your behavior then. Didn't you put the wallet in at that moment?" Gina's calm response helped clarify my suspicions. Lauren, unable to answer immediately, looked flustered. Her eyes darting around, her behavior practically confirmed it. Cornered with no escape, Lauren groaned, Gina continued in a calm tone. "I heard about your personality from my sister. It's shocking that someone close to my age would go to such lengths to harass someone. Please don't hurt my dear sister anymore." Hearing this, I finally realized that Gina was angry. Gina has always been gentle. But when she is angry, she speaks in a quiet, admonishing tone, which is quite intimidating. Lauren, unable to talk her way out of the lecture, was then scolded by my in-laws. "Lauren, what are you doing? Calling Kelly a thief, that's beyond shameful. It's disgraceful. We've treated you and Nick equally. Where did we go wrong? Kelly, everyone, I'm so sorry our daughter has done this. My father-in-law apologized to us." However, even seeing her parents apologize didn't seem to impact Lauren. Suddenly, she stood up aggressively and glared at me. "Why is everyone making me out to be the villain? I've been opposed to your marriage with Nick from the start. I hoped you'd embarrass yourself today and break up. But you've ruined even that," she ranted, infuriating everyone with her audacity. But knowing Lauren's true feelings, Nick was furious. "Don't be ridiculous," he shouted, making Lauren flinch. "If I had just stayed quiet, you were really trying to ruin our relationship. I can't hold back anymore, I'm going to say everything now." "What? Wait, what are you going to say?" Lauren attempted to stop him in a panic, but Nick, having reached his limit, could not be stopped. He revealed all of her past misdeeds, including how she had made me cover lunch expenses without ever paying me back, and how she had ambushed us in front of our company to beg for money. Moreover, Nick said that Lauren had been trying to break us up by secretly feeding him baseless bad things about me. No one would believe such words. Kelly has been working hard since she joined the company, and her kind and sincere nature is something I know best. Even if she's family, there are things you shouldn't say. Nick didn't specify what exactly Lauren had told him, but his anger suggested it was quite severe. That's what happened. When I expressed surprise upon hearing this for the first time, Nick looked frustrated. "Sorry. I didn't want to worry you with unnecessary concerns, so I kept quiet. No matter what my sister says, I believe in you, Kelly." Hearing his serious words, I felt tears welling up. I wiped the tears from my eyes and turned back to Lauren. "Lauren, I've decided to stand by Nick no matter what. Please start letting go of your brother," I said. Lauren, possibly embarrassed, blushed and snapped, "Shut up. You'll remember this," before storming out of the house. After the storm passed, I sighed in relief. No matter what harassment Lauren might plan in the future, I'm not afraid. This incident deepened my love for Nick. I vowed to trust him and walk together in the future. A few days later, the money for the lunches I had covered for Lauren was returned to me through my in-laws. Apparently, they had pressed Lauren to prepare the money she owed me. Later, we received a call from Lauren's ex-husband at the in-laws' house. The reason for their divorce was Lauren's spending habits. She had even dipped into their living expenses. Consequently, her ex-husband had demanded compensation from her, which she had claimed to have paid, but in reality, a significant amount was still outstanding. It turned out she had been delinquent in her repayments, which her ex-husband revealed in his call. Learning this, my in-laws had enough and disowned her. It was also revealed that she had a history of stealing money from home. Apparently, Lauren had not only the compensation to pay but also debts, from buying luxury goods and from visits to nightclubs. According to Nick, Lauren had been deeply involved in the nightclub scene since her 20s, often reprimanded by their parents. Eventually, Lauren could not manage her finances, and even misused funds from her workplace, leading to her recent dismissal. Later, Lauren, who had been kicked out of her family home and lost her job, called me. I have no one else to rely on but you, Kelly. Please, just lend me a little money. She pleaded tearfully, but I refused firmly. Isn't it too convenient to ask now? Please pay off your compensation and debts with money you earn yourself. I don't want to be involved with you anymore. But aren't we family? Let's get along from now on. I wanted to get along initially, too. But I can't be family with someone who spends recklessly and doesn't think they've done anything wrong. After cutting her off firmly, I hung up while she was still ranting. Lauren then began a meager existence in a cheap apartment, but soon fled due to debt collectors and is now of unknown whereabouts. Nick also said he would never involve himself with her again. A month later, we held our wedding without her presence. The wedding, blessed by many, remains a priceless memory. Afterward, we moved into our new home, and I soon discovered I was pregnant. As we await our child's birth, we spend fulfilling days together, hoping to continue these happy days with our new family. My name is Erica Smith. I am a 35-year-old office worker. Dylan and I got married after 5 years of being together. Although it is common to hold a wedding ceremony before registering the marriage, due to various scheduling conflicts, our registration happened before the ceremony. We had been planning and looking forward to our wedding ceremony for a long time. However, no one thought that the wedding day would be the beginning of a drama. On the day of the wedding, when Dylan and I had our first look, he was sweating profusely, which worried me. I had never seen him sweat so much before. His makeup was coming off due to the excessive sweat, and even the staff was concerned. However, Dylan insisted he was fine, so we proceeded with the ceremony. I walked down the aisle with my father, and the ceremony went on for a while. Just as the vow ceremony was about to start, my heart was pounding. But this was indeed the opening act of a drama. All we had left to say was "I do," but then, "Wait a minute," shouted my sister as she entered the wedding venue. I was stunned for a moment, but my sister was smiling as she approached us. While I was distracted by my sister, I felt a shock from behind. Turning around, I saw Dylan laughing and saying, "The bride isn't you." Then, as my sister stepped onto the stage, she said, "Isn't this a wonderful surprise?" The plan was a huge success. I love the look on Big Sister's face. They both laughed together. What were they thinking? Of course, I was shocked, and so were my parents and Dylan's parents. However, the words I uttered surprised Dylan and my sister, Lucy. "So, I should just give up my place, right?" "What? Why? Why?" "Because you want me to give it up, right?" "Yes, but why are you agreeing so easily? Should I have resisted? It would have just wasted our energy, right?" "But it's a wedding? You prepared for it, didn't you?" No, you're the one who ruined it. Why are you so surprised?" "Well, let's move on since Big Sister says it's okay. There are guests here, and both my parents and Dylan's parents are here, so it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But I don't like having 2 people in dresses, so Big Sister, please leave." "Right. I certainly can't participate in this wedding." As we were talking, the wedding staff intervened. Of course, a wedding with the irrelevant sister and Dylan couldn't proceed, so it was disbanded. We handed out something to the attendees and refunded their gifts before sending them home. My parents and Dylan's parents gathered to discuss the situation. Everyone seemed concerned about me, but because I seemed calmer than they expected, they didn't understand the situation. Why is Big Sister so quick to understand? Quick to understand? Really? Yes. It's strange. I thought I would make Big Sister suffer more. It's definitely strange. What do you want me to do? You wanted to steal the wedding, right? Then, aren't you glad you could steal it? Yes, but it's boring if it's this easy. Really, Erica. Did you know something? Know something? If you want to know, I can tell you. I knew this would happen. I was only surprised by their outrageous actions, but I wasn't shocked that they had such a relationship. Lucy and I are not actually blood-related sisters. She is the daughter of my father's second wife, whom I first met when I was in elementary school. My stepmother was a very kind person who always cherished me no matter the situation. I wanted to get along with Lucy and actively tried to talk to her, but she didn't reciprocate much. However, I intended to interact with her as a sister. Nevertheless, Lucy always seemed overwhelmed by feelings of envy. She compared everything to me and wanted everything I had. I could give her things, but when it came to friends or lovers, I definitely refused. Then she would cling to our parents, saying, "Mom, big sister won't give me her friends. Big sister won't give me her boyfriend." Of course, even my parents said to her, "That's difficult, Lucy. Friends and lovers are close with Erica because they want to be, not because they can be transferred to you, Lucy. Don't you have your own friends?" "I don't have friends, so I want sisters." And she even wanted my older friends and boyfriend. Lucy's selfishness was troubling for both my parents and me. I grew so tired of that lifestyle that, when I graduated from high school, I started living on my own. I made sure not to tell Lucy where I lived because I didn't want to have any contact with her. I occasionally met with my parents, but my university life was busy, and I was focused on obtaining my qualifications, so living alone was truly a blessing. It would have been terrifying to think of such a challenging life with Lucy around. Then I got a job at an accounting firm. The firm is family-run and has a very homey atmosphere. Family-run businesses are often said to be difficult to work in, but it was a kind and wonderful environment. 7 years after I started working, Dylan joined the company. It seems he had been working at another accounting firm but decided to join his family's firm when he turned 30. Dylan fell in love with me at first sight and actively pursued me. He was kind and considerate, so I gradually became attracted to him, and we started dating. The company's owners were happy about our relationship. In fact, they had been encouraging me to date him from the moment Dylan was hired. So, we got married after 5 years, and that was the start of our married life. But Dylan's behavior became strange when we went to my family home to announce our marriage. Before going to greet my family, I had told them not to invite Lucy, but somehow she was there, and when Lucy saw Dylan's appearance, she scoffed but became interested when she heard about his profession. "Oh, are you the next president?" "Yes, our accounting firm incorporated 5 years ago, so that makes me the president." "Wow. So big sister is going to be a president's wife? Isn't that a bit unfair?" "That's so sneaky." No. It's not about being sneaky or anything. It's not a very large accounting firm, so I'll continue working, and it's nothing to envy. Then give Dylan to me. Do you understand what you're saying? We are engaged, so I can't just hand him over, okay? What? Really? That's so troublesome. It's not about being troublesome. But Dylan, you've never seemed very popular before. What about a woman like me? I have more charm and appeal than big sister. We don't really look alike, do we? That's right. We're not blood related. Right. Erica seems like a beautiful elder sister, but Lucy, you seem cute and like someone I'd want to protect. Oh no. Dylan, saying I'm cute in front of big sister. You love me, don't you? Well. When I showed signs of disgust, my parents sensed it and took Lucy away from Dylan, returning her to us. After that, Dylan's behavior became odd. I work in accounting, and I noticed that Dylan started producing receipts from high-end bars, Italian, and French restaurants. Strange. Certainly, Dylan said maintaining relationships with clients was important, and he would go to entertain with my father-in-law, sometimes alone. But those outings were usually for golf or at pubs, not Italian or French restaurants, let alone bars. Moreover, his stays increased, and the lodging costs were always over $300. I consulted my in-laws, and they spoke with Dylan, who managed to make excuses and slipped through their scrutiny. Still, it was odd. It hadn't happened before, and suddenly after we went to greet my family. I thought I should be suspicious, but I worried it would be bothersome during his busy work times. I endured thinking that. One day, as the office computers were being serviced, I noticed Dylan's computer received a message. I only saw the sender and the first line, but it was from Lucy. The message read, "Does Big Sister realize?" Curiosity got the better of me. I decided not to send Dylan's computer for maintenance but got him a new one, and I checked his messages when he wasn't around. The content was truly dreadful. "Thanks for giving me your contact. I've been smitten by your cuteness since I saw you at the greeting. Thanks for contacting. I'm happy to hear from you. I fell for Dylan at first sight. I'd be happy to have a physical relationship." I was shocked. At some point during the marriage greeting, he must have given her his contact. I was there all the time, but when? Though I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment, it was clear they were involved. As I read the messages, I saw unbearable lovey-dovey emails and photos they sent each other, which were quite disgusting. However, Lucy was telling outrageous lies. Big Sister has been harassing me since she remarried. She stole my lovers and lied to my friends to cut off my relationships. She also speaks ill of me to our parents. I was told I couldn't marry until Big Sister did. So when Dylan said he was marrying me, I thought I could finally find someone, but it turned out to be Dylan. For the first time, I wanted to steal something from Big Sister. What is she talking about? Lucy was blaming me for everything she had done herself. But Dylan believed her, saying, "I want to marry Lucy." I never thought Erica was such a person. But seeing how well she gets along with my parents, I can believe it. Let's get back at her. First, let's meet at the hotel today and talk. Just talk? Of course, we'll have to have a physical discussion. But after that, let's discuss in bed. A plan to push her into the abyss. Seeing this, they planned to ruin me. I felt nauseated from reading too much of Dylan and Lucy's messages. Yet, despite talking about such things, Dylan still sought physical relations with me. I hadn't realized until I saw those messages, but the night he was with Lucy, he was also with me. Truly disgusting. After seeing that, I could no longer face Dylan, and whenever he was at home, I would immediately go to my bedroom. Of course, he reported this to Lucy. That old hag is avoiding me. I can see the wedding preparations are going smoothly on the app. How about Lucy appears at the vow part of the ceremony and steals the spotlight? We talked at the hotel about locking her in a closet before the wedding, but that's not realistic. Indeed. And that plan would be dramatic, right? They were excited about it. So I decided to take revenge too. That's why I wasn't surprised by them at the wedding. I was just shocked by their indecent behavior. My parents said Lucy couldn't attend the wedding because she had a cold, her throat hurt so much she couldn't speak, and she might have an infectious disease. Well, I knew that too because it was all in the messages. So I knew she wouldn't be there. And then the moment of the vows came, and Lucy appeared. And now here we are. I'll give you what you want. I'll take it without you saying, but what's the point? Knowing that, it's just boring. As we were talking, my father-in-law erupted in anger. What is the meaning of this? Who is this woman ruining the wedding? At that, Lucy started speaking through tears. I am Erica's sister, Lucy. Actually, my sister is a terrible person, planning to take over the accounting firm. So I told Dylan, and our love ignited. Dylan also said that I am cuter, and that his parents love me more than they do such a despicable person. That's why it ended up like this. That's right. Dad, Mom. Erica is a liar and a horrible person. That's right. I am the horrible one, am I? Could you please look at the paper I distributed earlier? As I said that, I showed everyone the paper I had given out. It contained evidence of their affair and a letter from a lawyer regarding compensation. The evidence included all their message exchanges and embarrassing photos which shocked them both. What? What is this? Why do you have this? I borrowed it from Dylan's computer. Did I ever do anything like what this message to Lucy suggests? Hey, Mom. Dad. When I asked this, they said, no. If anything, it was always Lucy who was saying I want that too and taking lovers away from Erica. So, this is all a lie. Taking over the accounting firm? You both know that's impossible, right? Yes. We trust Erica enough that even if she took over, it would be fine. What is that supposed to mean? Erica, I am really sorry. As everyone began to side with me. Why is it always Big Sister? Big Sister has everything I don't, it's not fair. Friends too. Boyfriends too. Everyone just loves Big Sister. I'm cuter. That's not fair. It's wrong. And why does Mom always side with her? She's my mom, right? Why would she side with a sister who's not even related by blood? Why was I attracted to such a woman? She's just a woman who's been making trouble for Erica. Dylan, you just got carried away, didn't you? You have little experience with love, so you were thrilled to be flirted with by a pretty girl like Lucy, but I'm disappointed. Lucy has always been with many men, she knows how to handle them. Huh? That's not true. I was always. That doesn't make any sense, does it? As we were talking, someone in charge of the venue came and said, what a problem you've caused in such a festive place. We will charge you for the inconvenience and all the costs of the ceremony. And we were driven out. Of course, that person came to my dressing room and told me they understood I was not at fault, which was reassuring. They even offered me the cake that was supposed to be served for dessert. It might have been a gesture of consolation, but I genuinely enjoyed the deliciousness of that cake because I knew everything in advance. There was no shock at all. Feeling refreshed, I left the venue where my parents were waiting for me. Maybe because I had been tense up until then, I started crying. I kept telling myself I wasn't shocked, but it seems a deep wound had formed in my heart. My parents took me home where I rested a bit, and eventually, I felt calm and returned to my usual confident self. Then, I received a message from my husband and shortly after from my sister as well. Both messages were similar, saying, you got us in trouble with our parents. Pay us compensation. And it's your fault our family relations are messed up. We will claim compensation. They really are alike. I was disgusted. Later, my in-laws contacted me and told me I could take a week off from work, which I gratefully accepted. I thanked them and took a week off work, put away my smartphone, and went on an overseas trip. When I returned and turned on my smartphone, there were a monstrous number of messages from Dylan. I ignored them and visited my in-laws first. I'm really sorry about this time. Dylan has been fired, so we'd like you to continue working as before. They told me, and I decided to keep working for a while. After speaking with my in-laws, I considered replying to Dylan. As soon as I sent a message, he called within 2 seconds. Why haven't you been reachable? I had something I wanted to tell you. What? My talk is only about compensation. You don't need to worry about that. Huh? What do you mean? We're not getting divorced. What? I don't understand. We are getting divorced. I don't know what authority you think you have to say otherwise, but we are getting divorced. Why? I got fired. How can the next president get fired? Besides, Dad, even though the office itself is small, has power, and he seems to be advising people not to hire me, I can't even get interviews. That's unbearable, isn't it? Dating Lucy meant I could splurge with receipts I made, but now that it's just my money, I'll be bankrupt in 2 months. I barely have any savings left, what am I supposed to do? I can't even pay the compensation. And on top of that, Lucy is pregnant. Now she just lounges around, not working. Using her pregnancy as an excuse, She keeps demanding things, wanting only the best for baby products. She's so demanding. I'm stressed out. One reason I want to get back with you is not wanting to pay compensation, but I also want to get away from Lucy. You're independent, which is good, but Lucy isn't. That's what makes it really hard. You see, my parents approve of you because you really have your act together. I realized how important it is to be apart only after leaving. Separation is really important, isn't it? What are you even saying alone? I am moving forward with the divorce, and regardless of your family situation, we will divorce and you and Lucy will pay the compensation and the wedding cancellation fees. Also, my dress got torn when you pushed me. That was a rental, so you'll be billed for that too. What the heck? That's not fair. Why do I have to suffer like this? Aren't you partly to blame? You did things that made Lucy resent you. That's not true. Lucy resents anyone. Lucy will probably get mad saying you're going out while she's stuck at home pregnant. That's what this is about. No matter what, she always has to be perfect, everyone has to want her, and she's never satisfied unless she's the only happy one. Did you guys even register your marriage? No. She just said we should because she's pregnant. Could that pregnancy be a lie? What? Did you check? Did you go to the doctor with her? No. She didn't want to go together. Then I can't believe it. You should suggest going to the doctor together next time. Don't scare me like that. Anyway, make sure to take care of the compensation and the venue fees. With that, I hung up the phone. And 3 days later, Lucy called. Big sister, you said something unnecessary to Dylan, didn't you? I didn't say anything. You said I'm not pregnant. Was that true? Yes. I had to lie about that much or he wouldn't register our marriage because he has no intention of marrying me. That's really not okay, is it? But I had to do that or I couldn't get him. Why are you so fixated on Dylan? He's not my husband anymore, and he's not a president, right? Why when he has no money? Because Dylan is the only one who pays attention to me. Everyone I was involved with was older, and they all got scared of marriage or having an affair. Dylan was the only one who cared for me. That's why I don't want to let go of him. Wow. Well, I think lying is bad. What happened to you two? Dylan got angry and left. He said he never wants to see my face again. It would be refreshing not to see such an ugly face, but this time it's different. My mom and dad abandoned me too, now I'm all alone. If that's the case, even such an ugly person is a wonderful boyfriend to me, a tool to fulfill my wishes. I can't believe someone who calls people tools can be happy. Shut up. Big sister, you're always like this. Always wielding your correct arguments. People can't live in such correctness. I know that, but you can't live a crooked life without consequences. The world isn't that easy. You, not only for compensation, but who was that in the dress at the wedding? Don't you know? Isn't it your second dress? No. I didn't change into a white dress. I chose a blue dress. You were the one in white. It turns out the dress was actually someone's personal property, not a rental, and now there's a major issue because it's considered stolen. Moreover, the wedding had to be cancelled because there was no dress, and now the person responsible is being billed for the cancellation fee. What? The perpetrator? Yes, it's a crime. You might even be arrested soon. Arrested? That's ridiculous. And it's no longer in my possession, so I can't be considered the criminal. What do you mean it's not with you? Because I had no money, I had to sell it. It sold for quite a bit, so now all I have is cash, not the dress. Ah, you really did it this time. You're going to be caught by the police. I always knew you were foolish, but this is just... I'm at a loss for words. What do you mean? Why? The person who bought it will be arrested, right? The buyer wouldn't know the situation. I don't care about that. That might be true, but... Well, you better get ready to be arrested. You shouldn't steal other people's things. Mom and Dad always taught us that, but it seems you never listened. I'm so disappointed. Come on, big sister. Help me. I don't want to get arrested. I don't know. You're just facing the consequences of your actions. Reflect on this and start living a good life. Say you did it, big sister. It's unfair that only you get compensation. You might as well continue to think everyone else is unfair. When you end up truly alone and can't blame anyone else, you'll face even more hardships, but that's your own doing. Goodbye. After that, I ignored numerous calls from Dylan and Lucy. Then, while watching TV, news broke that a dress thief had been caught. It was Lucy. But during the news, her statement was broadcast. Big sister is to blame. It's all big sister's fault. Although other names were not mentioned, there were comments that must have been about Dylan, still blaming others. I was astonished that she was still blaming others. Lucy, with no money, would be in police custody for a while. Dylan tried to come to my parents' house and even stormed into the accounting firm run by my in-laws, attempting to mend our relationship, but everyone rejected him. No one was willing to accept him. Despite Dylan repeatedly asking for a chance to talk, it was clear he just didn't want to pay the compensation, so I never agreed to meet. I left my in-laws' accounting firm and am now working as an accountant at a company in a different region. My in-laws had always wanted me to keep working with them, but working with the family of the man I divorced was too much, and frankly, I hated the idea of Dylan showing up. So when this incident prompted my parents to sell their apartment and move to the countryside, I took it as a good opportunity for us all to relocate together. It truly cut ties with Lucy. Having endured so much for Lucy's sake, our family finally feels free. From now on, we plan to use our time for our own happiness. The inheritance is all mine. Dad would definitely be happier if his son would inherit it, instead of some woman who's not related by blood. You're not my sister anymore, I'm cutting ties with you, my brother said with a sneering smile. Indeed, to our father. I was not related by blood as I was my mother's child from a previous relationship. Still, he loved me as his own daughter, which made him very special to me. I felt angry that my brother wanted to monopolize everything our father left. But I was relieved by his words about cutting ties. Fine by me. In return, once you inherit, don't ever contact me again. Like I'd ever do that. Don't expect any money from me later, not even a penny. I am Kelly, a 29-year-old civil servant. My brother Steve is 22 and just graduated from university this year. He often brags about his company being more famous and successful than the rural city office where I work. Must be Dad's genes, right? I've got the blood of a dad who worked for a major corporation. Yeah, very impressive. Steve often brings up the matter of inheriting our father's traits. Although we share the same mother, we have different fathers. Steve is the child of our current father and mother, while I am the child of my mother and her ex-husband. Although I'm technically a stepchild, Dad never despised me for it and cared for me deeply. I don't really remember my real father much, as he ran away with his affair partner when I was little. Thus, I regard my current dad as my true father. When Steve was younger, he never mentioned that I was a stepchild, or that we had a different father. However, when I was an adult and he was still in middle school, our mother died in a car accident. Unable to cope without blaming someone, Steve convinced himself that it was my fault. At the funeral, he cried out, "Why did Mom have to die? It would have been better if it were you. No one would be troubled if the step-sibling were gone." No matter how shocked he was, Being told such things made me lose any affection I had for my brother. I wanted to argue back at such a harsh statement, but our father, who I had never seen so angry, scolded Steve fiercely, so I chose to remain silent. Naturally, my relationship with Steve deteriorated. Initially, he tried to surpass me academically, but aiming too high. He failed to get into his first choice schools for both high school and university. He couldn't out-earn me either, as I was a full-time employee. And he was just a student part-time worker. There were plenty of other fields like sports or arts where he could have competed. But fearing failure, he stopped taking any challenges. As blood relation was an undeniable fact. He thought he could dominate by poking at that without any need for effort. Eventually, Steve just kept mocking me for being a stepchild. And not the real child of our father. It was probably just misplaced anger from losing our mother at first. But as he grew up, he genuinely started to believe. Dad and I are the real family, and the sister is an outsider. As my sister is a stepchild, I have a higher standing than her. I grew tired of dealing with such a selfish brother. He would provoke unilaterally, lose by his own measures, and get angry. I got so exhausted dealing with him that I started to dismiss him carelessly. When Steve chose to commute to university from home, I moved out to live alone in an apartment. When I would come back home, I made sure to coordinate with Dad to visit when Steve wasn't around. 4 years later, Steve graduated from university and managed to get a job at a fairly renowned local company. I had prepared a tie as a graduation gift. Of course, I got a job at a much better and more famous company than the city office where you work as a civil servant. Because I have the blood of a dad who works for a major corporation. His character apparently hadn't changed even in 4 years at university. I decided against giving him the gift. I continued to live alone and commute to work, while he lived with our father, and faced the rough waves of society as a new working adult. That lifestyle didn't last even a year before Dad suddenly fell ill. There were no signs when we talked on the phone the night before. He passed away so suddenly that I didn't even have time to say goodbye. At the funeral, I served as the chief mourner. And thanks to Dad's prior arrangements about what was needed and which procedures to follow, everything except the inheritance was smoothly handled. The problem was the inheritance. The only living inheritors were Steve and me. I had a feeling that discussing it would inevitably lead to conflict. I found some documents about the inheritance in Dad's room, but I knew they wouldn't be followed exactly. Steve arrived over 30 minutes late for our meeting without apologizing, and immediately said something outrageous. The inheritance? I'm the real child, so I'll take it all. You, as a stepchild, are just an outsider. Isn't it greedy for an outsider to claim the inheritance? Steve kept laughing about being the real child and monopolizing the inheritance. I was so tired of dealing with him all my life that I put forward a condition and promised to renounce the inheritance. I won't inherit anything from Dad. In return, you must never contact me for the rest of your life, no matter what. Are you stupid? Like I'd ever contact you. Don't expect anything from me later, just disappear. Disgusted, I stood up to leave while Steve just kept smirking. I fondly remembered how cute he was as a child as I left. The next day, I went to a law office to proceed with the legal aspects of the renunciation of inheritance. Kelly, you said you don't have any inheritance rights as you are a stepchild of your father. Actually, Dad formally adopted me, so I do have rights to inherit his property. but I don't want anything anymore. I'll renounce the inheritance. The lawyer's acknowledgement came as I interrupted him. Although I hadn't mentioned it to Steve, Dad had officially adopted me after marrying my mother. Therefore, even though we weren't blood related, we truly were parent and child. I was aware of everything Dad owned from the estate investigation. Yet, I wanted to be free from the complications of being called a stepchild or a legitimate child, so I had chosen to give up everything. A month later, the lawyer informed me that the family court had accepted my renunciation of the inheritance. Reluctantly, I contacted Steve. Hello? My renunciation of the inheritance is complete. You know, from the estate investigation Dad had? Steve cut me off, shouting. Shut up. I get it that you've renounced the inheritance. Stop acting like a real sister and don't ever contact me again. He hung up and I sighed deeply. Knowing that Steve would eventually come crying made me feel even worse. 3 months passed, and then I started receiving numerous calls and emails from Steve. Reluctantly, I answered the phone, hearing his exhausted voice. You know what? I need to borrow some money. Dad had debts, and I can't keep up with the repayments. I used Dad's savings too, but it's not enough. What? Sure, Dad had some loans to repay, but if you used all his savings for it, it shouldn't have been this bad. When I responded that way, Steve yelled back. Did you know about this? Did you push the debt onto me knowing all this? You have such a bad personality. Oh right, because you're just a stepchild. You must be jealous of me, the legitimate child. Who hung up the phone when I tried to tell you? Who blocked my calls? I thought I'd email you out of pity, though. And yet you unblocked me when you got into trouble? Who's really the one with the bad personality here? I had learned about Dad's financial situation, including his significant debts, as part of my renunciation process handled by the lawyer. I had tried to inform Steve, but he had cut off all communication, so I left it at that. As expected, he ended up coming to me in tears. Sure, Dad worked for a big company. But can you imagine how hard it was to send you to high school and college? There were educational insurance and Mom's life insurance. But things like the house and car had to be paid with loans. I'm not your sister, right? You should talk to the mortgage lender or the lawyer instead of me, an outsider. What are you talking about? Don't sweat the small stuff. Besides, I'm treating you like a sister even though you're just a stepchild. So be happy about it. Come on, Kelly, give me some money. Furious at his smug voice, I hung up sharply and blocked Steve's number. He didn't know where I lived alone. And I hadn't left any clues about my home at Steve's house. Just to be safe. I even got a new cell phone, thinking that would stop his calls, but I was wrong. Kelly, please, I need money. Otherwise, I can't survive. Steve started showing up at the city office where I work. Unlike when he acted arrogantly towards me, he now appeared genuinely distressed, visiting me repeatedly. He only came during lunch breaks, which seemed to indicate he was sneaking out from his job. On days he didn't visit, he would still call multiple times, disrupting my work. I explained the situation to my boss, and they moved me to an administrative position. But then he began staying past closing hours, refusing to leave until he saw me. After work, I caught him waiting for me and dragged him to the parking lot. Stop it already. Don't cause trouble at my workplace. I told you to consult the loan institutions and the lawyer. He finally stopped pretending to be polite and looked down at me with arms crossed, anger in his voice. I already consulted them, okay? The insurance from the group credit life policy means I don't have to pay for the house anymore. The car's left with about $5,000. So I negotiated to reduce the monthly repayment and keep using it. Then you're not really struggling to live. Dad only had those 2 loans. What are you begging for money for? His anger softened suddenly, and he looked around nervously. When I pressed him further, he reluctantly began to speak. Actually, Dad had quite a bit of savings. So I spent it on various things and went over budget. I borrowed money from a friend, but now I can't pay it back. That guy's going around saying I scammed him, so now I can't borrow from anyone else. If I can't borrow from friends, I'll have to go to predatory lenders. Then I'll have to repay with borrowed money, and I can't make ends meet. My head ached deeply as I sighed. His story was convoluted. But I understood the mess he was in. You mean you keep borrowing money to repay debts and now you're stuck? Yeah, that's it. I think I'm already on the blacklist or something. I can't borrow anymore. If you pay, it'll all be over, Steve said, extending his hand towards me. So, Kelly, give me $8,000. When I slapped his hand away, Steve rubbed his hand and glared at me angrily. There's no way I'm paying. It's entirely your fault for overspending on your shopping and resorting to loan sharks. Why can't you help me out when I'm asking like this? Is it because we're only half-blood related that you don't care about your brother? Stepchildren are really the worst, so unpleasant. I got into my car and started the engine. Steve tried to cling to me in desperation, but I knocked his hand away. You promised not to contact me for the rest of your life in exchange for monopolizing the inheritance. You break promises, beg for money. And on top of that, you're rude and foolish. I don't have a single penny for you. If you come again, I'll call the police. Steve repeatedly called out to me, Kelly, but I ignored him. I stepped on the accelerator, leaving him in the parking lot, and drove away. After that, Steve continued to come to the city hall, lingering until closing time and bothering people from various departments with his calls in the morning and evening. Thanks to this, he became one of the top problematic individuals at the city hall. As long as I was there, he was a nuisance. Since he didn't shout or cause a scene at the counter, it was difficult to report him. So it was quicker for me to disappear. Do you want Kelly? She's no longer at this city hall. What? Did she quit? So how much severance pay did she get? When Steve came to the counter as usual, he learned from the staff that I had quit and received the severance pay. And he frantically started looking for where I might be. However, as personal information such as addresses and contact details of staff members is protected, there was no way he could be told freely. Unable to find me, Steve wandered around suspiciously and was reported as a suspicious person here and there. Subsequently, he was unable to gather the money by the repayment deadline and is now repaying little by little each month with considerable late fees added. I heard this from a kid whom Steve had defaulted on. It seems that he is ultimately facing wage garnishment as he couldn't keep up with repayments to other companies. Now, he is forced to live modestly. A far cry from the arrogant brother who used to strut around. As for me, I didn't actually quit the city hall. The city where I work was formed by merging several towns, so the old town hall still functions as a branch office. I explained the situation to the personnel department and was transferred to a branch in the mountains until things settled down. Initially, I planned to return to my former department once my brother's issue was resolved, but now I find the work in this branch more fulfilling. The mountain area has fewer residents and is always short-staffed. Being closer to the residents here, I feel I am more helpful to them. When I say I have no family left, everyone treats me kindly. The sadness of losing both my father and mother never fully disappears. But at least I am relieved to be free from the complications of being labeled a legitimate child or a stepchild. You're no use if you're frail. I try to eat a lot, but I just can't seem to gain weight. You don't have to force yourself to eat. Well, just managing to stay alive is good enough. Even when I fell ill, my mother never worried about me. It was always about whether I was useful or not. I've always felt judged in that way. My name is Mandy. I'm a 29-year-old housewife. My husband Kevin, also my age, was my classmate from middle school. He started a business young and is now a successful entrepreneur. Kevin was the one who gently reached out to me when I was going through my hardest times. Since middle school, Kevin and his parents, who were thrilled about our marriage, have always been concerned about me. Though I am happy now, I was treated harshly by my parents since childhood. That started when my mother died shortly after giving birth to me. It can't be helped. My parents are getting old, and they can't take care of a baby now. My sister never thought she'd pass away first. Are you saying I should raise a child that isn't even related to me by blood? Don't say that. We're having trouble having our own children. So let's think of her as our own. I was actually the child of my father's sister. Therefore, my father was technically my uncle. And there was no blood relation with my mother. Married for 5 years, my parents, unable to have children of their own, decided to raise me in place of my biological mother, who died soon after giving birth to me. This child has a fever again. I'm busy and now I need to go to the hospital. What a hassle. She is frail. My sister was never like this. It seems I was born weak and often fell ill. 2 years after taking me in, my parents finally had their own child. Who would have thought I could have a child? We wouldn't have needed your sister's child then. What a waste of time and money. Calm down, don't say that. When we took in Mandy, we never thought we'd be blessed with our own child. My sister Rebecca was smart and excelled academically from a young age. As a child, I adored my newborn sister and took great care of her. We remained close as we grew up. Rebecca bore the weight of our parents' expectations and was subjected to accelerated education from elementary school. Naturally intelligent, she absorbed knowledge like a highly absorbent sponge and maintained top grades through high school. Eventually, she was admitted to a prestigious science university. Rebecca, congratulations on your acceptance to the university. You've studied so hard, huh? Let's make today's dinner a celebration. I told my sister, expressing my congratulations. Well, thank you, Mandy, but we are supposed to go out to a restaurant today. Oh, I see. Then, go and enjoy some delicious food. Aren't you coming with us? I can't eat much at once, and I eat slowly. I'd just get scolded by Mom again. It's always like this for you. It's really terrible. Rebecca knew that I was not her real sister but her cousin. As I grew up, I naturally came to understand this. And our parents never hid my background from me. After a while, my parents took Rebecca and headed to the restaurant. Make sure you've cleaned up the bathroom. Don't take a shower before us, okay? It's decided that one of us should use the bathroom first. Okay, I got it. I saw the three of them off and settled for leftovers in the fridge for dinner. Being frail, I often missed school. Because of this, I wasn't allowed to go to university, as missing classes would be a waste of tuition. Unable to work outside, I ended up doing most of the housework instead. Although it got late, all I could do was wait for their return. My parents and Rebecca came back hours later. Come on, behave yourselves. You both drank too much. My parents said they drank too much wine, and both slumped at the entrance. Looking down at them, Rebecca said exasperatedly, Seriously? You drank too much. In the end, it's just a nuisance to me. What kind of celebration dinner is that? Then, turning to me, she handed me a small white box and said, I bought a cake at the restaurant. Let's eat it together. Rebecca suggested that it was fine to let our parents sleep off their drunkenness there, and led me into the living room. After a while, our parents woke up at the entrance. Hey! Why didn't you carry us inside? My still slurring mother shouted from the entrance. As I hurried over, Rebecca followed and said to her, It's inefficient to move drunk people around. Wherever you take them, they'll just sleep. Wouldn't they realize their folly if they woke up where they first lost consciousness? Right? My parents, speechless, instead told me to prepare something to eat. I made some simple soup. They complained that the taste was bland, and the soup was too watery. As it was always like that, I didn't take it to heart. By the way, how much did you earn this month? I'm frail and can't work outside, so I've been working from home instead. I felt the pressure to contribute something to the household. I was saving bit by bit, thinking I needed to leave this house soon. Not much yet, maybe about $400. That's just pocket money. If only you could work outside too. Rebecca's education will cost us more now. I'll take out student loans for my tuition. I'll work part-time, too. Relieved by Rebecca's words, my parents seemed a bit comforted. After starting university, Rebecca indeed borrowed student loans and worked hard at her part-time jobs. Even when she came home late, she always studied. I supported her secretly. Eventually, Rebecca excelled and smoothly advanced to graduate school and found a job. Around that time, an incredible incident came to light. What did you spend it on? My father asked grimly, interrogating my mother. That's this idol I liked. I promised to follow him to England. What? Idol? My father was furious, not understanding her words. Essentially, my mother had been infatuated with a UK pop star for a long time, and had poured a considerable amount of money into it. Her feelings had exploded after saving for years, thinking about our tuition. That's because Rebecca said she'd go to university on a scholarship. So I thought a little spending would be okay. I was there with my mouth shut while they talked. However, my mother then turned to me and said, If you had properly worked and brought in money, this wouldn't have happened. I felt unfairly blamed, but because of my frailty, I couldn't leave the house much, and I couldn't talk back. Then, a while later, it was discovered that my father had hidden debts too. The amount was considerable, running into a few tens of thousands of dollars. And even Rebecca accused him fiercely. There's no point in asking, but what did you spend it on? If it's pointless to ask, then don't ask me. Well, please don't. My father had never seemed so diminished. Well, it might be something really bad. Rebecca said that to me, but I didn't quite understand what she meant. Hopefully, no children that Dad made outside come knocking. Infidelity. That's what she meant by really bad. In about half a year, our parents' debts amounted to a few tens of thousands. They couldn't blame each other, so things started to calm down. But the debt didn't disappear. Thinking about what to do, my parents said something shocking. We've decided to sell this house. Rebecca will live with us. But Mandy, you have to make it on your own from now on. I couldn't hide my surprise at their words. It can't be helped, can it? You don't work, even after all we've done for you. I was doing some work from home, earning a modest amount to contribute to the household. However, to my parents, I wasn't their real child, so they could say such cruel things. Rebecca was furious like a raging fire at their words. I will never forgive them for driving you out, Mandy. That night, I had a long discussion with her. A few days later, I left the house, dragging my heavy luggage. I was heading to the bus stop when a car pulled up beside me. Isn't that Mandy? It was Kevin, who is now my husband. Knowing I was heading to the bus stop, he offered me a ride in his car. You said you were frail, right? Carrying such heavy luggage. Where are you going? Well, I don't want to hear if it's to a boyfriend's place. I shook my head vigorously and explained everything that had happened. Eventually, Kevin drove me to the cheap hotel in the city where I was planning to stay, listening to my story all the while. Even if they are step-parents, to drive out their daughter? That's a terrible story. Kevin said that, and during my stay at that hotel, he took me out to eat almost every day. After I left, my parents sold our house and made my sister take out a mortgage for a new apartment. It's a relief that Rebecca works at a famous company. We got the mortgage easily. And now we can live in such a lovely apartment in a prime location in the city center. In exchange, I've taken on a huge debt. Well, I will do some part-time work at least. Well, there's a new restaurant nearby that opened today. Let's try it out. We have money from selling the house. By driving me out and selling the house, my parents paid off their debts. After losing their home, they depended on Rebecca working at a famous company. They splurged luxuriously, and after paying off their debts, they seemed to have spent the remainder without thinking about the future. When their pockets were empty, they started counting on Rebecca's bonus. There's nothing left. What do you mean nothing? Isn't it bonus season? Our company is in trouble. Rebecca informed her parents and added, they're accepting voluntary early retirements. I might not qualify since I haven't been there long. But if I'm going to resign, I might as well get some money. The parents turned pale. Rebecca, what about the home mortgage? Of course, it'll become unpayable, so I'm planning to sell this place. What? What about us then? Are you going to rent an apartment somewhere? Then you have to take us with you. That's right. You need to do that. Since we're unemployed, we can't rent a place ourselves. Listening quietly to her parents' selfish reasoning, Rebecca slowly informed them. I worked part-time while attending college. And I've paid off most of my student loans with the money I earned. If my voluntary resignation is accepted and I receive a lump sum, I plan to enter medical school to become a doctor. She continued, having also found a place where she could work and live. Oh no, what about us then? Right. What about Mandy? She had some earnings too, right? Now that it's come to this, we must somehow get her to earn. Rebecca looked at her parents with a cold gaze and then smiled slyly. I received a call from my parents. They asked if I was doing well, or why I hadn't contacted them, always saying whatever they wanted. Mom, I'm currently. As I was about to speak, Kevin took the phone. After introducing himself, he said, Mandy is currently staying at my place. We are considering marriage. And currently. Before he could finish, my mother interrupted. Kevin. A soccer player from middle school? You were so popular, why would you be with Mandy? For a while, my mother chatted carelessly, but eventually, she fell silent after hearing Kevin's words. Our wedding is next month. We've already registered our marriage. So she's now my wife, and we won't be able to provide any support. I didn't hear anything about a marriage. After all we've done raising you. You didn't even bother to report something so important. In a fit of frustration, my mother apparently threw a tantrum. Wait, didn't Mandy tell Rebecca? Rebecca said she would tell the parents herself. Upon hearing Kevin's words, my mother turned and glared at my sister standing behind her. Rebecca had been in constant contact with me. When I confided to her about my relationship with Kevin, she immediately went to speak with him. She insisted that if Kevin truly loved me, he should register the marriage right away. If Kevin had refused, Rebecca was ready to come and get me herself. She was worried that once she could no longer take care of our parents, they would turn to me next. Later, Rebecca's application for voluntary resignation was accepted at her workplace, and she received her early retirement payment. The company wanted to retain such a young and capable employee, but Rebecca was firm in her decision. The apartment she shared with our parents was in a desirable and new location, so it quickly found a buyer. After clearing the mortgage debt, Rebecca applied to medical school and was admitted. Now, she's studying at medical school, living on site, and working part-time while aspiring to become a doctor. I want to be a doctor who can help people with frail bodies like you, Mandy, Rebecca said, determined. At the same time, our parents went to ask Kevin and his parents for a loan. Despite Kevin's warning, they came over with pale faces, having nowhere else to turn. We had been looked after by my wife's brother for a while, but we were kicked out from there too. We raised Mandy, so we have some rights to ask for help, right? You must have some money? Kevin's parents, while serving delicious food at their home, said softly. Mandy is Kevin's beloved wife, and we want to protect her. But they looked sternly at my parents and firmly rejected any further involvement. Intimidated by the attitude of Kevin's parents, my own parents shrunk back in uncertainty. Kevin's father then handed them a sum of money and said, This money is a token of compassion. Use it to rent an apartment and start working to support yourselves. Mandy and Rebecca have both decided their paths and found happiness, right? Now it's your turn. Earn your own keep and manage your life after retirement. My parents were clearly told by Kevin's parents never to come back, and they were driven out of the house. Both looked pale and drained of blood. They probably never thought that they would be kicked out of a home like they had once done to me. If they could understand even a little of how I felt back then, there might be some hope for their future. Either way, after years of squandering, they'll need to continue working hard in their old age. From then on, I continued working from home to support my sister's dream of becoming a doctor. Instead of our parents, I diligently delivered homemade meals to her, and she was always delighted. Like this, I often visit her to support her dreams. Now, with a kind husband and supportive in-laws, and being able to support my sister, I am very happy.